It is the dish left dirty in the sink, not because you forgot, but because you secretly resent having to wash it. It is the compliment that lands like a slap across the face, leaving the receiver confused and hurt while you smile innocently. It is the heavy sigh you release when you walk into a room, hoping someone will ask what is wrong so you can say, nothing. We often think of anger as a loud explosion, a slamming door, or a raised voice, but for many of us, anger is a quiet, creeping fog. It is a form of emotional guerrilla warfare, where the goal is to score points without ever declaring that a battle is taking place. This is passive aggression. If you find yourself doing these things, or if you are on the receiving end of them, it does not mean you are a manipulative person. It usually means you are stuck in a pattern where direct communication feels dangerous. You have likely learned that anger is an unacceptable emotion, so you have found a way to smuggle it out in disguise. The problem is that while this strategy feels safe in the moment, it is actually one of the most corrosive dynamics in human relationships. It destroys trust, creates confusion, and ensures that your actual needs are never truly met. To understand why we do this, we have to look at the mechanism of suppressed anger. Passive aggression is essentially a fear response. It is the strategy of someone who is terrified of direct conflict, but is also in pain. At some point in your life, you may have learned that saying, "I am angry" or "I disagree" leads to rejection, abandonment, or danger. Perhaps you grew up in a home where anger was punished, or where you had to be the good child who never caused a fuss. As a result, you developed a defense mechanism that psychologists often call the deniability shield. The brilliance of passive aggression is that it offers you plausible deniability. If you make a sarcastic comment and the other person gets upset, you can simply say, "I was just joking, you are too sensitive." If you procrastinate on a task you promised to do, you can say, "I just forgot, why are you nagging me?" This shield protects you from taking responsibility for your aggression. You get to express your hostility and hurt the other person, but you still get to maintain the facade of being the nice one. You remain the victim, and they become the aggressor for reacting to your subtle jabs. However, this safety is an illusion. Passive aggression creates a gap between your reality and your presentation. Internally, you are seething with resentment, frustration, or disappointment. Externally, you are smiling, agreeing, or staying silent. This gap creates massive internal tension. It is exhausting to constantly repress the truth of your experience. Furthermore, it creates a crazy-making environment for the people around you. They can feel your anger. Human beings are very good at sensing nonverbal hostility, but because you deny it, they start to doubt their own reality. This erodes the foundation of safety that intimacy requires. Let's look at how this actually plays out in the everyday life of an adult. One of the most common patterns is the accidental forgetfulness or weaponized incompetence. This often happens when you have trouble saying no. You agree to do a favor, attend an event, or complete a task at work because you are afraid to disappoint someone. But because you never wanted to do it, your subconscious resists. You forget to pick up the dry cleaning. You show up late. You do the task so poorly that the other person has to redo it. On the surface, it looks like you are just scatterbrained or clumsy, but underneath, this is a form of protest. It is a way of saying no without having to face the anxiety of actually saying the word. You are punishing the other person for asking, or punishing yourself for agreeing. It creates a dynamic where you feel controlled and nagged, and the other person feels ignored and disrespected. Neither of you gets what you want, which is a clear agreement. A second common pattern is the backhanded compliment. This is aggression wrapped in a layer of social nicety. You might say to a friend, "You are so brave to wear that outfit. I could never pull that off." Or perhaps you tell a colleague, "It is great that you leave work so early. I wish I did not care as much about this project." These statements are designed to sting. They target the other person's insecurities while giving you an escape route if they call you out. This pattern often stems from envy or a feeling of injustice. You might feel that life is unfair or that you are working harder than everyone else. Instead of addressing that feeling of unfairness or asking for what you need, you try to bring the other person down a notch. It is a way of equalizing the playing field in your mind. But in reality, it just pushes people away and makes you seem bitter or judgmental. It isolates you further, which only fuels the underlying resentment. The third pattern is the heavy sigh or the silent treatment. This is the mind-reading trap. You are upset, but you refuse to say why. You walk around the house, slamming cupboards just a little too hard. You give one-word answers. You withdraw your affection. When your partner asks, "Is something wrong?" you say, "I'm fine," but your tone clearly says you are not. This behavior is a regression to a childlike state. You want the other person to guess what is wrong because you want to be rescued. You want them to prove they love you by deciphering your code. If they have to ask, it doesn't count. But adults cannot read minds. By refusing to speak your truth, you are setting the other person up to fail. You are testing them, and when they inevitably fail the test, you feel justified in your anger. See, you tell yourself, "Nobody cares about me." It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of loneliness. There is a pervasive myth that passive people are the peacemakers. We often think that the person who never yells, never fights, and always goes with the flow is the good one in a relationship. But avoidance is not peace. True peace is the resolution of conflict, not the suppression of it. A passive-aggressive person is actually constantly at war. They're just fighting from the shadows. This approach is often more damaging than an open argument because an open argument has a beginning and an end. Passive aggression is a chronic, low-level toxicity that can poison a relationship for years. The tragedy is that the passive-aggressive person usually feels like the victim. You likely feel unheard, unappreciated, and walked all over. You do not see yourself as the aggressor. You see yourself as someone who has no choice but to use these indirect methods because nobody listens to you anyway. Breaking this cycle requires realizing that you do have a choice. You have the choice to be direct, even if it feels terrifying. So, how do we start to dismantle this shield? The first practical tool is something we can call the translation game. This is an internal exercise you do before you speak. When you feel the urge to make a sarcastic comment or to give the silent treatment, pause. Ask yourself, what is the real sentence underneath this behavior? For example, if you are about to say, "Must be nice to have so much free time," translate it. The real sentence might be, "I am feeling overwhelmed with the housework and I need your help." If you are about to say, "I'm fine," the translation might be, "I am hurt that you forgot our anniversary." If you are about to forget a task, the translation might be, "I felt pressured to say yes, but I actually do not have the bandwidth for this." You do not have to say the translation out loud immediately if you are not ready, but you must say it to yourself. You have to acknowledge your own reality. Passive aggression thrives in the fog of denial. By naming your true need or feeling, you take the first step out of the fog. You stop tricking yourself into thinking you are just joking or forgetful. The second tool is practicing I statements for anger. This is a classic therapy tool because it works. The structure is simple. I feel X when you do Y. The key here is that you are allowed to say, I feel angry. Many of us believe that saying, I am angry, will end the relationship. But in a healthy dynamic, anger is just information. Start with low-stakes situations. Instead of rolling your eyes when a friend is late, try saying, I feel frustrated when I have to wait because I have a tight schedule today. Notice that the world does not end. Notice that the other person might actually apologize and change their behavior, which creates a resolution that passive aggression never could. You are teaching your nervous system that directness is safe. It is important to remember that this transition will feel awkward. You might feel mean when you are simply being clear. That is normal. You are retraining a lifetime of conditioning. You are moving from a nice persona to a real person. Being real includes having boundaries, having limits, and yes, having anger. Anger is not inherently bad. It is not a demon to be exercised. Anger is a signal. It is the light on your dashboard telling you that a boundary has been crossed, a need is unmet, or a value has been violated. When you suppress that signal, you are driving blindly. When you distort that signal into sarcasm or silence, you are confusing everyone else on the road. Expressing your anger directly is actually an act of respect. It respects your own reality by validating your feelings, and it respects the other person by giving them the truth. It tells them, I value this relationship enough to be honest with you, even when it is uncomfortable. It invites them to know the real you, not just the mask that smiles while it seethes. As you go through your week, try to catch yourself in the act. Catch the sigh. Catch the snarky text message before you hit send. Ask yourself what you are actually afraid of saying. What is the truth that is hiding behind the smile? Real connection can only happen when we drop the shield. It is scary to come out from behind the wall of passive aggression, but it is the only way to be truly seen, heard, and loved. The smile that hides anger keeps you safe, but it also keeps you alone. The anger that speaks the truth sets you free.